All right. Hi, everybody. Again, hopefully,
Hopefully you can hear me now.
right? If not, well, sorry. Um, so fingers crossed that you guys can actually hear us. We'll find out. If it's silent on the other end, oh well, we'll still have a good time. So, needless to
Right?
say, getting back to it, this is our first official one in a couple weeks. And then obviously we had to have some technical difficulties because, it is how we roll. So, needless to say, get back to the Poseidons. So,
Yeah.
we haven't hit a chat or anything yet to say we can't hear you, Derek. So, fingers
We're
crossed.
just gonna have to roll with it and hope for the best.
Right?
Just in case, I'm gonna throw this up on Twitch discussions. Just in case there's anyone out there that wants to join in the chat.
Hell yeah.
Let's bring it back and
Reel it back in, right?
We reel it back in. We spilled the beans a little bit here. We are talking about Poseidon, the god of the sea, and we're gonna relate him to a Wheel of Time character. And at first, it might be a little bit of a shock. So we're gonna emphasize not just the sea aspects of Poseidon, because obviously it's probably the most well-known aspects of him. And
Right.
Wheel of Time mostly does not take place in the sea, but there are large consequences involving the sea and sea travel. So I'm gonna throw it to you, Theo. You can get us.
Hey!
You can row your boat
Down
gently
the
down
stream.
that stream of knowledge.
And literally streaming, we got the chat.
Literally
Same person,
streaming.
Mr. Sims, thank you very much for letting us know that we're having technical difficulties, and thank you for letting us know that we are solved.
That's appreciated.
Much appreciated. And hey, we do respond to people that chat with us. So, much appreciated. So, we're going on Poseidon. You are correct, Derek. Unfortunately, all your dad jokes got eliminated with no being able to hear you, but dang it, oh well. So, yes, Poseidon, god of the sea, as we said. But he's also the god of earthquakes, storms. Now you're going to say, wait, storms? But isn't that Zeus? And technically speaking, no. Zeus does thunderbolts, not actual storms. It's a delineation, but Stormbringer would be
It's a little bit
Poseidon.
of a difference, but I get it.
And horses. And you're probably thinking, horses? But think about a wave, right?
Okay.
And if you're hitting the wave and you got that ocean foam, and as it's like traveling, you got the wave coming, what does it look like?
Oh, so
it looks like a
galloping
horse.
horse.
You're
yeah,
right.
like.
And-
All right, I like that.
And usually, Poseidon was also depicted, if it wasn't just himself, he would be in a chariot with horses, and like underneath would be that sea foam, like of like an ocean. So it's like the horses galloping through the ocean. It's pretty cool if you think about it, and it makes sense when you're trying to relate something to personification of nature.
Right. Absolutely.
So that being said, he's a brothers. Zeus and Hades are the two most known. So
Right.
he shares some traits with them. Would you say Zeus is a moody jerk? Yes.
Yeah, I would say so.
Hades, obviously.
Right.
Poseidon, same.
No exception.
He was probably a scale of 1 to 10. If you said Zeus was a 10, Poseidon maybe even be like an 11. He was like mega jerk. So if you wronged him, he would just do his thing and stamp you out.
Well, you can imagine back in the day, a lot of ships probably sailed out and never
Yes.
came home.
Bingo. Exactly, Derek. So he was poor-tempered, he was a moody jerk, and he was greedy as hell. He was known to be extremely, like, a jerk. If you really spoke out against him or if he felt insulted, he would just send it. And when I say send it, kind of like Aquaman, you got the trident thing. Poseidon's symbol is the trident. It's a three-pronged spear. And so what they say is when he got super mad, he was like, screw you all. Bam! He would smash the trident on the ocean floor. Ugh, earthquake. Well, what is also happens under the sea, if you have an earthquake, you would usually have some type of wave.
Like
Tsunami
even a
wave.
tsunami sometimes, yeah.
Well, as you very eloquently put it, man, how did people get from point A to point B? Once they figured out how to make a ship, that
Right.
was the direct path versus trying to traverse all around Europe, trying to get it from anywhere. It would take months, maybe
right,
years,
right.
where you could just cut across the Mediterranean.
No, that's a good
The
point.
Mediterranean's not like crazy weather, not like there's like hurricanes and crazy weather, but to these, I would say, yeah, to these ancient ships, yeah, not awesome. So it's not like being on the open sea, aka the Norse folk, but it still had its idiosyncrasies to navigate.
Oh, for
So he, speaking with same thing with Zeus, he was a Titan technically. He was the son of Kronos and Rhea, but he was one of the people that was swallowed. Zeus was the one that was kind of hidden,
Kind of
whereas
right.
everybody else was
Didn't he-
eaten.
That's right. It was a rock wrapped in swaddle, right?
Yep. So he got so Kronos got tricked that it was
Right.
actually Zeus, but it wasn't. But yes, it was Hades, Demeter, Hestia, Hera, and Poseidon all got munched. Obviously, they didn't die because they swallowed whole because you got to just swallow them whole.
Right,
But,
right.
Yeah, that was his birth, devoured by his dad because his father assumed correctly that a son would
Right.
bring him down, or actually an offspring would bring him down.
Right, right.
So once it was all settled, everybody was like kind of divvying their things up. The three guys were like, and the guys were guys, of course,
Of
patriarchal
course.
society back then. You got Hades, Poseidon, Zeus. You're like, how are we going to divvy this stuff up? Well, what's the
Right.
fairest way to do it? You could flip a coin, but there's three of them, so they literally drew straws. And that's how they got their circle of influence. So, Zeus got the heavens, skies, so to speak.
Right.
Hades, the underworld, Poseidon, the seas. And that was, of course, like the three biggins.
Right, right.
That being said, which ties it back into our storyline, this wasn't really talked about on how they settled it, except really one time that I know of.
Okay.
And Derek, you should know this, but I'm not going to put you on the spot because it's a surprise.
I appreciate it.
Homer said it in the Iliad.
That was as soon as you said I should know it. I would say okay, it's got to be Homer.
So that's really the only way, or that's the only discussion that took place on how they divvied up their powers. Did that actually go down that way? Who knows? Was it a good storyline? Absolutely. But yeah, it's not really talked about. It's just like, this is how it is.
No, I
Whatever.
like that. Yeah.
So, yes, protector of sailors, absolutely. If you're going to go on a voyage, who would you offer your blessings for? Poseidon, because he was
Poseidon.
all about the water.
I see. Yes, yes.
So
that
that's a
makes
big
sense.
one. That's a big one. Yes, obviously, where do storms come from? They usually come off of some type of body of water, and as the weather comes in, you have weather patterns. So, hence the storm bringer. Oh, if you got bad weather, it's Poseidon's doing.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Navigation, obviously, because if you're rolling around, you got to go somewhere, right? Yes, technically speaking, he was if you want to be super technical, he was a fertility god. Because water
It makes sense.
brings life, so that
Right,
does make sense. He's almost always depicted with some type of trident. That was like that's his thing. He was also portrayed very similar to Zeus. If you just like stripped away their symbols and you put the two next to each other, they'd be pretty darn similar. Big, hulking, super masculine, muscle guys, ripped, beardy, got the nice curly hair.
Right.
But if you took all of the stuff away, I don't know if you could really tell the difference. Yeah, again, if you took all the nomenclatures away, like all of if he's in a chariot with horses, okay, that's Poseidon, not Zeus.
So you're not saying they're twins, but they're
brothers.
Would have a similar imposing physique.
Which conversely is not Hades.
Right.
Hades is not like muscle man. He's slender and usually not bearded. So there is a difference between the two up top, if you want to say, and the one down below. There's a difference between those guys.
Right.
Those three.
Well, we have a really good episode actually where we discuss the parallels in Matrim Calthin as being Hades.
Correct.
And one of the brothers. So that's going to be one clue for our listeners who are following along.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we think Poseidon might be? Well, I'm not going to say it yet.
All right.
Matt Cathan, right? He's one of the main characters, and we're looking at a situation of maybe some kind of brotherly love, or where they're very close if they're not literally brothers. Mm-hmm. So there's our first clue.
There's a clue.
It's not Matt.
So we got two others.
So Matt is Hades, and guess what? Matt fits that kind of not scrawny, but kind of gangly long limbs. He's described as having stork-like limbs.
Yep.
So
makes sense.
And watch that video, please. So go back to you, Theo.
So he did actually assist the Greeks in the Trojan War, aka the Iliad, and he was about to whoop that ass. Like he was actually going to get involved where gods weren't really supposed to do that. But he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna it's time to murder everybody. But Zeus was like, no. You're not going to do that. He's what? But of course, Zeus is the guy. So he relented and retreated, so to speak, from the battlefield. He didn't do anything overtly. However, the one Greek that he absolutely hates is Odysseus.
Interesting.
Can't stand him. So when we eventually get to the Odyssey, because super spoiler alert for the heels. Yes, we'll eventually do the Odyssey when we're done with the Iliad. He hates Odysseus. And that's one of the big plot arcs within the Odyssey is Poseidon's hatred for Odysseus.
And what's really cool, everybody, is that when we get to the Odyssey, we're actually going to see hints of that story within Wheel of Time. However, we're going to see that although the stage is the same, it's it's still Wheel of Time, but we're going to see the characters are going to be different.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yep.
So so just because we have Poseidon today being somebody, and we know who Hades is today, well, that might be from the Iliad's perspective. When we get to the Odyssey, which we believe Robert Jordan put in, the perspective changes. And we have material to revisit. We briefly we tried to review the Green Man movie without giving ourselves a primer. Now we know a lot about the topic, and we see there's a bit more material there. Yeah.
A lot of more parallels.
There's a lot more things that made sense. So that was us being amateur, but that's okay. We're enthusiastic amateurs.
We're learning, We're learning.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to once again throw it back to you.
So he had, he did like to, like Zeus, was married. It doesn't really matter. I know it sounds really bad, but whatever. She's not that crazy important. She wasn't like a goddess, so to speak. More of a nymph. But like Zeus, he got around. The difference is Hera with Zeus was like, I'm going to murder all of your kids. This didn't really seem to be that big of a deal. So, yes, they did produce his wife, the sea nymph, did produce Triton. Interesting. Half human, half fish. So you could almost say Aquaman.
Okay, no, I like that.
If you want to say that. He got it out with Medusa, the snake lady that would turn people to stone. Yeah. that produced Pegasus, which is a flying horse.
Okay.
Horse makes kind of makes sense.
No, I like this. I like this.
So Orion, we've touched on Orion. Guess who Daddy is? Poseidon.
That's interesting. So, like, one of the biggest kind of brutish warriors born from the ocean.
Yes, from the
Makes
ocean
that
god
sense.
at least. Yep. There's always got to be one like head scratcher, face palm, like oh my goodness. So he's like, dang, Demeter, you look fine. That's his sister though. And she's like, hell no. And she's like, oh, I'm gonna trick him. But she turned herself into a horse, a mare, female horse.
A mare.
So go figure though. But what I say? Poseidon's the god of
Horses.
right. So is that gonna be outside of his purview to transform himself into a horse?
No.
No. So he was like, I'm gonna be a pimp stallion.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Well,
So needless to say, yeah, those two hooked up. They
all
did
right.
produce a child out of it too, and go figure, it's a horse.
Of course. A horse is a horse, of course.
I was about to say that, man. That's hilarious. So, one of the biggest things was his competition for the city we now know as Athens.
Okay.
So, before it was just a town, let's say a town, village, whatever, had no name, right? They were like, so we go to the gods and we're going to have a
see where this is
competition
going.
who is going to have the name of the city. Whoever brings us the best gift.
Ah.
Cool, right? Poseidon's like, I got this on lock. I'm the god of friggin' water. I'm going to create a spring in the Acropolis. Boom, makes this fantastical fountain spring. So you're like, okay, how is that really sweet? Well, Greece isn't really tropical. So it gets rain, sure, but it's not... it's very arid, let's put it that way. It's not
Well, you're
tropical.
talking about a group of islands and then land surrounded by ocean.
Yep.
So, yeah, not a lot of fresh water on the islands for
Nope.
sure. And we're talking about Athens, right?
Yep.
Which is
Away from
away
a little
from
bit.
the
Yep.
yeah. So, yeah.
So you're like, dang. He's like, I just dropped it. However, Athena's like, 'cause she's the goddess of wisdom. She's got some smarts. Was like, you know what? I'm gonna give you the olive. So she gave him the olive tree. Greece was, the city of the Athenians were like, hands down, olives. Of course, what's Greece known for? Olives. So, yep, that kind of made sense, back in the mystical days. So, hence why Athens is named Athena, because it is actually named after Athena and not Poseidon. I don't know what you would call a Poseidon. Poseidonopolis, I don't really know. Doesn't have a good ring to it. But, needless to say, he lost out on that. He wasn't pleased, but yeah, it's Poseidon. He didn't like smash and like destroy Athens. So I mean, he could have done that, but he didn't. So that's good. His meaning is crazy old, so it's nobody really knows exactly what it means.
You mean like as far as like deciphering why his
name is Poseidon, right?
Okay.
What they're thinking by piecemeal is husband of the earth, lord of water.
Maybe something like that.
Yep, and it's old enough to where even some of the philosophers like Plato was like, it just means a lot of things.
Oh, okay.
So his name is back in the day.
That's interesting. A lot of these names we kind of find a pretty solid
lead
basis for. But
this one not so with him.
That's cool.
So yeah, think I got just about everything, man. But he likes his earthquakes.
Well, that's great. So let me go down the last false candidate. You mentioned a really big, masculine, bearded guy.
Yep.
Well, that definitely sounds like Perrin.
Right?
Now, Perrin doesn't have a trident, and although we haven't done this video yet, I will give a sample. Hera is this vastly jealous wife.
Oh, yeah. Of Zeus.
Well, you see, the thing is, Perrin is married to Phael, his falcon, who has a vicious jealous streak.
Mm-hmm.
And that just sounds too much like Hera to me. So that makes Perrin, in my book, Zeus. Not maybe 100% lightning bolt aspects of Zeus, but the willpower aspect of Zeus. And we'll get, and his form and figure. And we'll get into that more another time. So that leaves us with one brother, right? Just one final guy, and it's the big guy. So Rand al'Thor being Poseidon. And how do I see this? Well, other than the process of elimination, and you know that we're going to say, well, this is a pattern here. Perhaps it continues with the third guy. I'm happy to report that it does. Rand is most definitely the Lord of the Storms, so to speak. I mean, he gets the lightning bolt aspect of Zeus. We've talked about that, how these larger characters are divided. I'll say the obvious part. A big chunk of Poseidon is actually put into a whole people in this book called the Sea Folk or the Sea People. The Sea Folk. The Sea People, I guess, are the historical version. So these Sea People are greedy, superstitious. They have strange customs. They are bare-chested, men and women. All their boats are named male names instead of female names. And it's like we have these strange kind of Poseidon elements. Not everything I said just there, but I'm just trying to flesh them out. So they have the ability to control wind and water. So it's very much a Poseidon. But literally, they, with something called the Bowl of the Winds, they control the weather. They control the storms. So they actually stop a storm, so to speak. So I see a lot of Poseidon there. And also, the Sea Folk refer to Rand as their Koromor, their legendary prophecy person who's going to, for the first time, deliver them land, which before that time they didn't have. So they're going to fulfill that prophecy. So moving forward, I'm going to jump around a bit. It's interesting that we have Athena, named after who Athens is named for, after she gave them an olive tree. We have actually a very similar story that kind of paints the Aiel as being Athena in a way, because they make a peace offering with the Carianan to have water rights, and the thing they give is a legendary tree. Avendasora is what they call it, but it could be an olive tree, you know.
Sure, it's a tree.
You see what I mean? Right. It's a special tree, a life-giving tree. So it's interesting. It just sparked my mind. I didn't have that prepared today, but I just thought about that, and it seems like, okay, we see a lot of these stories spread out, is what it seems. And then the bigger characters, like your Poseidons and your Zeuses and your Hades, they're a little denser. They're still spread out, but you see more of their attributes in one character. Another attribute I see of Poseidon, which should be obvious to the people that know and love Wheel of Time, is, and I'm not going to say moody, although that is true about Rand, so I'll just get that out of the way and be done with it. But horses. So Rand is like the master of horses in the series. He always has an excellent horse. Um, Rather, he always has the horse he needs, I should say. His first horse is Bella. Not the biggest horse or the fastest, or it shouldn't be. But the very first, think about this, the very first thing that Rand al'Thor was able to do with the power was to give this horse like a boost, make it a little faster, a little stronger, make it run a little longer. He was able to do that because, I would say, that's an aspect of Poseidon.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to channel his horse prowess in order to give this horse a little bit more energy. And what's interesting also is Bella appears in the dream of Egwene at some point and has almost the power of flight. So it makes
Pegasus.
me think, okay, Pegasus. Bella must be Pegasus. And you can imagine that as the story was maybe exaggerated over time, from the perspective of the Wheel of Time being the original story and our history being based on it, which is a funny kind of joke, but interesting thought experiment. Who would have written the story about Bella and the three brothers, Perrin, Matt, and Rand? Well, we discussed earlier, we have another episode, please check it out, that Homer is indeed walking around in Wheel of Time, recording all of these facts.
Mm-hmm.
And when he gets around to it, he'll write his epic down. And Homer is none other than, go watch that video. So, yeah, it's Tom Merlin. No, I'll tell him again. It's Tom Merlin, but I won't give all the reasons here. But he doesn't know where the boys came from. He doesn't rightly know that they're not brothers. So it fits that maybe he would change some of these facts when he gets to writing it down. Maybe Bella's a flying horse all of a sudden, and maybe he's a wizard instead of just a bard. So I see a lot of Poseidon here. There's one trick that Rand really does that makes me think of Poseidon. And not just his earthquakes. He does this thing with the ground to make it look like a wave of water, which is terrifying to me. But nonetheless, the other trick he does when he goes to Rohirrim with his friend Hades/Matt, it's a desert, and guess what he's able to do? He's able to lift up water from this deep spring underground, and he makes the fountain spring again, Theo.
Yep.
So you told me that Poseidon gave Athens the gift of a spring.
Right.
Well,
Yep.
here we are with
Rand.
the Aiel land getting the gift of a spring, right? From Rand this time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very strong parallel. And maybe what happens in the future of Rand land, maybe the part that we miss, is maybe a great hero brings olive trees to the Aiel Waste, and maybe they forget about the thing that Rand did,
Right.
and maybe eventually the olive tree becomes the important event. So,
I mean, if you think about it, Olive, Aiel,
right. No, it's funny.
similar.
And you also have, it's similar to Athena.
Right.
We're going to argue that Avienda might be somewhat Athena at some point. We'll get to it. So, yeah, I think that we have. It's interesting that Poseidon and Rand both did the same exact thing.
And didn't Rand also bring up storms at some point?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
so,
I was gonna say.
So he's this,
Stormbringer.
Stormbringer, of course. So he's done. He never in the book does he. Unfortunately, there's not that scene that you really want where he makes 20 boats, smashes 20 boats.
Right.
But you hear about that scene. You hear about the Windfinders of the Aiel doing that to the Sanshin, which we discuss are kind of standing in for the Aegean fleet, the Greeks. So they're there to lay down the law and do what they're there to do. Is a big part of the story. They're required. But we Robert Jordan didn't want to make that fight the whole story, and it seems mostly we get the major battles spread out throughout the book instead of taking place all together. So I feel like I missed maybe a point or two, but I think we've woven together quite a few facts.
Heck yeah. I would agree with that. I do agree. Now, yes, I do agree that, Rand does a lot of the same things that Poseidon would do. Would I say, for a little bit of devil's advocacy here,
Right.
would I say that Poseidon is stronger than Zeus? No.
Okay.
That's probably the one thing that I would say is not Rand-like.
I see what you mean.
I'm going to tell a little story, and this is why I would say that's the one aspect that's not quite at the same level. The thing with Poseidon is he hates Zeus, too.
And I think you're comparing Perrin with Rand when you say this,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Good, yeah, sorry, subject first. So Poseidon's like, I can rule. And everyone's like, Zeus is kind of a jerk. Let's teach him a lesson, let's knock him out. So he got some people, some heavy hitters to help him out. And needless to say, Zeus rocked them all. It was like, bring it, no, bye. Didn't, yes, was it necessarily a coup d'etat? I don't think they were really going for that. If it had happened, I'm sure he'd have been like, I'm now king. But needless to say, he got smashed.
Well,
and put into his place.
I think the reason for that is, for whatever reason, Robert Jordan made Rand Poseidon, but not as strongly Poseidon maybe as mad as Hades.
Right.
But I'd say he's still the character that's the most Poseidon and does the most Poseidon-like things. I want to throw this in there, and it just came to me. I totally forgot. There is a trident in Wheel of Time.
Ooh, I missed that.
One of the symbols for one of the nations of the Trolloc armies is a trident. So I'm going to wrap up with what I have to say with we will revisit Poseidon when we get back to the big show that we're building up to, where we directly compare which Greek gods would fit closely to the Forsaken. And that's when we get to talk about the Trollocs more and to see who really lines up.
Dig it.
Because Poseidon is spread around. And
absolutely.
He'll come back.
For sure. As most of our characters have thus far.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right, so I think I'm good. Derek?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I'm glad we were able to throw this together. Thank you for everyone that was able to sit through this little show and come back after we were on our little break.
Yeah.
And
speaking about a break, thank you for our viewers that are watching currently, and hopefully more will watch before. I actually got really sick because obviously didn't me and I have translated yet. But I got sick, COVID. It was bad. Probably 15-20 minutes if I didn't calm down a little bit, probably would have had to go to the hospital. So I had it real bad. I'm much better now, so everybody still stay diligent. I was, and I still got it. But thank you, much appreciated for everybody that's actually viewing and will view and come back to us after a couple week hiatus. Much appreciated.
Absolutely, well said. And what he's really trying to say is, we really love you guys, and we're here for even through thick and thin. We really enjoy doing this show. So thank you everybody for your support. But let Theo know, everybody, that you're glad that he's feeling better,
Very cool.
and I hope and that he continues to be feeling better.
In the meantime, also like and subscribe to the whole thing. Not just
Absolutely, please.
Not just us. So much appreciate everybody. I think we're going to sign off for the time being. Appreciate you guys also going through our technical difficulties.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But again, thanks, and we'll catch you next week.
Until the next one.